Praises to the Most High, whose true name in the ancient Hebrew is Yahweh, and the name of his only begotten Son, whose true name in the ancient Hebrew is Yahweh Shai, and the Holy Spirit, which in the ancient Hebrew is the Ruach Kodash. Double honors to the elders of GMS who taught us this truth by the Holy Spirit. Honors to the brothers risking their life and freedom to push the gospel. Peace and blessings to the elect, who would be the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans who make up the lost 12 tribes of Israel, according to scripture and prophecy. The elect will be 1/3 of the Israelites who in the last days will return back to Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai to receive salvation, while the 2/3 of Israel who don't turn back to the Most High in time be destroyed with America. And that's all according to prophecy. We back with another lesson through the mercy of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai. I think I'm going to title this lesson War with the Enemy Within. War declared on the 12 tribes. War declared on the 12 tribes, the enemy within. I think that's what I'm entitled with. So, Trump called the top 800 war veterans and generals, etc., for a very important meeting. And everybody was speculating on what could the meeting be about. Why is the president calling the top generals from all over the world for this special meeting? And I just already knew that it was going to be some BS. People thinking that the military about to be on some top secret missions. They about to get together and discuss on what they're going to do with Russia. And I just knew it was all going to be some BS. So he called all them war generals for this very important meeting to pretty much discuss on how they going to come up and make war with the children of Israel, the 12 tribes, the Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, and Seminole Indians. I said, he going to get all them people together and they ain't going to have jack shit to say about Russia, North Korea, China, the so-called Middle East. No, they all got together to discuss war against the 12 tribes. And the guy Paul, who I listen to on my war news, created this image at the beginning of the year. And I bring it up every so often. Breaking news: Trump's war on brown-skinned people aims to end birthright citizenship. And it's a spirit because the brown people he put just so happened to make up the lost 12 tribes of Israel, so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native American Seminole Indians. So Trump's war on brown-skinned people, no, Trump's war on Israelites, the 12 tribes. And if you look at what's been taking place concerning the ICE raids, deportations, how they've been coming up against the Guatemalans, Venezuelans, so-called Mexicans, some Native Americans, some Jamaicans and Haitians, it's obvious that he's been at war with the 12 tribes since the beginning of the year. But now people thought stuff would die down. They thought they would fight, they would be able to fight back. But now it's getting worse. And people who watched the meeting, they surprised. Oh, Trump said the enemy within. He's declaring war with the American people. No, this is not war against the American people. This is war against the 12 tribes. It's just you other people in the way of the bigger agenda, which is to wage war to exterminate the 12 tribes of Israel. Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, you people in the way. So y'all can get caught up in the crossfire. But yeah, this ain't nothing new. Trump been at war with your 12 tribes. Now, 7, 8, 9, 10 months down the line, you're finally waking up and realizing what's going on. You're in the middle of an all-out war, which the men of the Lord been telling you before time. This is this is what it will come down to. People been in denial. They thought it couldn't happen to them. You got, so-called Mexicans, Hispanics that got their citizenship, thought they were safe. They started the denaturalization process, stripping people who became U.S. citizens of their citizenship. So-called Negroes, so-called blacks, laughing at the so-called Mexicans and so-called South Americans as they was being snatched up, like it couldn't happen to them. Talk about, yeah, we was born here, we was citizens here. We can't be deported. Now look, you got ICE in Chicago and being deployed to these other democratic cities, and they coming at y'all harder than they came at the Northern Kingdom. So you so-called blacks thought it couldn't happen to y'all. Y'all thought y'all was special. You thought you had some kind of rights, some kind of privileges here. You finding out you in the middle of an all-out war too. So we're gonna start with this first video, and it's titled "Trump Signals Greater Use of Military in U.S. Cities, Warning of War from Within." That's a civil war. But again, greater use of the U.S. military, not in Russia, not in Ukraine, not in the Koreas or the so called Middle East, but greater use of the military right here in America. All of the wars that's taking place involving America's so called allies, you thought they would be over there being a good ally to join their allies in battle. But no, they cowards. They worry about people who's no threat to them here within the U.S. Now, check this out.
I'm thrilled to be here this morning to address the senior leadership of what is once again known around the world as the Department of War. Together with many of you in the room,
And that's the first thing. He changed the Department of Defense title to the Department of War. And I've shown the picture. We've seen the picture. Um, when he changed the Department of Defense to the Department of War, he said um, the Apocalypse, Chicago is going to find out why it's called the Department of War. So all this war talk, all these changes in the military and how they're going to do things, it's not even against America's enemies. It's against so-called blacks and Mexicans.
Brought back the fundamental principle that defending the homeland is the military's first and most important priority. That's what it is. Only in recent decades did politicians somehow come to believe that our job is to police the far reaches of Kenya and Somalia, while America is under invasion from within. We're under invasion from within.
You hear that? He said America is under invasion from within. And who do you think he's talking about? You would think he's talking about all these military aged Chinese men that came up through the border. You would think he would be talking about all these so called Iraqis, Iranians, and so called Middle Easterns that came up through the border, or so called North Koreans, Russian spies, Japanese, Koreans. You would thought that he would be talking about them, people with known militaries. But no, he concerned about some so-called Mexicans, a bunch of 5'6" Mexicans riding a pickup truck, trying to come to America to work for $9, $10 an hour. That's who he's concerned with. 5'6" Mexicans picking strawberries and crops. That's who he's concerned with, not the people he should be concerned with. Not to mention, the South and Central Americans who also made up their way up here to work. He's concerned about working immigrants. No, not the people that were stationed here. So, yeah, when he said the enemy within, he's talking about the 12 tribes, so called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, whether you've been here or whether you migrated here.
No different than a foreign enemy but more difficult in many ways because they don't wear uniforms. At least when they're wearing a uniform, you can take them out. These people don't have uniforms. But we are under invasion from within. We're stopping it very quickly. After spending trillions of dollars defending the borders of foreign countries, with your help, we're defending the borders of our country from now on. But we're running it based on common sense and based on love of our country.
So yeah, he said they're under invasion from within. So first, he had to declare to you that there is an enemy, and the enemy will be the 12 tribes: Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans. Whether you've been here or you migrated here, Trump just officially, nationally, globally, publicly declared you the enemy here in America.
But I want to salute every service member who has helped us carry out this critical mission. It's really a very important mission. And I told Pete we should use some of these dangerous cities as training grounds for our military, National Guard, but military.
They said they should use some of these dangerous cities for military training grounds. These dangerous cities just so happen to be labeled as so called black cities, democratic cities, like Chicago, Washington, D.C., so called black cities. He wants to deploy the military there. Why? Because we the enemy. You Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans. Why not the Republican cities? Why not these sundown town cities where they still hanging and lynching so-called black folks? Why not Utah where they shot Charles Kirk? Where another Edomite shot some police officers? Why not there? Where these mass shooters at? Because we the enemy.
Because we're going into Chicago very soon. That's a big city with an incompetent governor, stupid, stupid. We have many cities in great shape too, by the way. I want you to know that. But it seems that the ones that are run by the radical left Democrats, what they've done to San Francisco, Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, they're very unsafe places. And we're going to straighten them out one by one. And this is going to be a major.
See that? He's putting the blame on democratic cities. So he's identifying an enemy. So-called blacks, Latinos, Native Americans. He's identified the enemy, and now he's identified the location, so-called democratic cities, and also anywhere a bunch of Mexicans and Latin Americans may so happen to be.
But for some of the people in this room, that's a war too. It's a war from within.
See that? It's a war from within. Now let's see a similar story in the scriptures. This is dealing with the book of Exodus, chapter 1, verse 7. And the children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly. And the children of Israel, being the so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, the people that you see on the screen over here to the right, multiplied and increased and waxed exceeding mighty. No different today. So-called Mexicans and so-called Negroes alone. Very fruitful, fertile people. Really all 12 tribes. Very fruitful, fertile people. So we increasing and multiplying and being fruitful here in America, which is spiritual Egypt. And it says, and the land was filled with them. They mad because so-called Negroes and so-called Mexicans are taking over. What was the cry? The Mexicans taking all the jobs. They wasn't doing jobs that white people want to do, but by number, we are fruitful and abundantly multiplying, becoming mighty here in America by number. Now there arose a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. And he said unto his people, and who's the king of the spiritual Egypt? Trump. Behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. So-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, we more and mightier than the white man today. When they call us minorities, those are mind tricks. We've never been a minority. Their birth rates decreasing, they death rates increasing. Our birth rates are through the roof. They've been a minority a long time ago. So deep down inside, they know that the children of Israel, once again, are more and mightier than them, simply by numbers. And this king of Egypt says, "Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply, and it come to pass that when there falleth out any war, they join also into our enemies and fight against us." So even here, Pharaoh declared the children of Israel an enemy threat by saying the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. They more than us in number, they stronger than us, they can probably beat us. That's what the king of Egypt was saying. He declared Israel the enemy and said, and if this enemy join forces with our other enemies, they may fight against us. And what's been going on? The whole world protesting against Israel in America, what they're doing to the Palestinians. All kind of massive Palestinian protests going on worldwide. So they fear that the children of Israel may join forces with the so-called Palestinians, may join forces with the Chinese, with the so-called Iranians, Russians, and Koreans that's here in America. That's their fear. That when these sleeper cells get activated, what if they team up with the Negroes? What if they team up with the Mexicans and the Guatemalans and the Venezuelans, the Jamaicans, the Haitians, etc.? So what he say? Come on, let us deal wisely with them. So he was declaring war against them. Like, hey, we gotta come up with a plan to do something about these people. They more and mightier than we. And what if they join forces with our enemies and fight against us? It says, and so get them up out of the land. And how has Trump been trying to get our people up out of the land? So-called deporting us, really dropping our people off in the middle of the ocean, putting us in these FEMA detention centers where they boasted in their heart's desire and feeding us to alligators. So either by deporting us or killing us, that's how they want to get us up out of the land. To what? To bring our numbers down. So they can feel like they in control. So they can feel like they on top and they the stronger force. So that they don't feel like the minority that they are. And that's what this whole Department of War is about, on how they gonna deal wisely with the children of Israel to weaken them. They want to weaken us. Now, that's that. Let's get to the next video. And that's why Trump said the enemy within. And that's why Pharaoh said the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Pharaoh is pretty much saying there's an enemy within. So next video. Pete Hegseth just announced they're preparing for a new era of war against all enemies. And that's code word for the children of Israel. But let's see what he got to say.
To ensure peace, we must prepare for war.
And again, this is the war within. For those who listen part way through the interview or speech, this ain't got nothing to do with Russia or Korea or China or Iran and Iraq. No, this is the enemy within America, the 12 tribes, Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans.
From this moment forward, the only mission of the newly restored Department of War is this: warfighting, preparing for war and preparing to win, unrelenting and uncompromising in that pursuit. Not because we want war, no one here wants war, but it's because we love peace. We love peace for our fellow citizens. They deserve peace, and they rightfully expect us to deliver it. Our number one job, of course, is to be strong so that we can prevent war in the first place. The president talks about it all the time. It's called peace through strength. And as history teaches us, the only people who actually deserve peace are those who are willing to wage war to defend it.
See, that's he constantly talking about war, prepare for war, no more defense. We're going on the offense, we're going to war, and we're going to establish peace through war. I don't know how many times he said war. But let's see what the scriptures say about it. This is the book of Psalms 141. Deliver me, O Lord, from the evil man. That's Esau, Edom, the so-called white man today. Preserve me from the violent man. Because Esau, he's that evil man, the man of war, whose blessing was a sword. In Genesis 27 and 40, or 39 and 38. It says, which imagine mischiefs in their heart. Continually are they gathered together for war. So continually they gather together for war. And this is a gathering of all America's top war generals from all over the world. They spend all this money to get all these people from all over the world here in America to discuss war against the 12 tribes, Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans. So again, deliver me, O Lord, from the evil man, preserve me from the violent man, which imagine mischiefs in their heart. Continually are they gathered together for war. And that's what they're discussing. That's what's always on the table when they get together, is war against the 12 tribes. Not Russia, not China. America ain't bust a move against them yet. But against the 12 tribes. All this tough talking they doing, speaking boldly and sounding tough, that's against you so-called Negroes and Mexicans.
That's why pacifism is so naive and dangerous. It ignores human nature and it ignores human history. Either you protect your people and your sovereignty, or you will be subservient to something or someone.
You heard that? He said you protect your society and your people, or you're going to be subservient. And that was real interesting. Let's hear that part again, then we're going to grab some scriptures on that part.
Ignores human nature and it ignores human history. Either you protect your people and your sovereignty, or you will be subservient to something or someone.
He said, protect your people and your sovereignty. What people are they trying to protect? White people, Edomites. What's their sovereignty? Their kingdom. America, the white man's world. White supremacy, white ideology. That's what they fighting for here in America. Because white supremacy, white ideology is on the decline. Not only in America, but worldwide. So, the 12 tribes of Israel, Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, are the biggest threat to white supremacy. Because they being phased out. But that's why I say, you got to protect your people, white people, Caucasians who are Edomites, your sovereignty, the white man's world, white supremacy, their kingdom. He said, or you're going to be subservient. Subservient means pretty much a servant or a slave to a greater power. So they pretty much fighting for their kingdom, to stay free, to stay on top. Because they know whatever's happened next, if they lose, they're going to be subservient to those who rise to the top. And the scriptures tell you that the children of Israel are going to be next. Now let's see what Psalms chapter 2 say. Why are the nations so angry? And we see it right now. Nations are angry. Why do they waste their time with futile plans? So everything they discussing in this war meeting is futile, meaning vanity, something that ain't gonna happen. The kings of the earth prepare for battle. See that? Ain't this the Department of War discussing a new era of war against its enemies, being the 12 tribes? The kings of the earth prepare for battle, and the rulers plot together against the Lord and against his anointed ones. His anointed ones being the 12 tribes. Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans. Now let's see what that plot is. This battle they preparing for, let's see what it's about. Let us break their chains. And the chain represent the connection between the Most High and His people. What's that chain? That's the covenant. And when the covenant is broken, the Lord cast off His people, and Israel are defeated before their enemies. But when the covenant is reestablished and the Lord is back joint to His people, Israel defeats all of their enemies. Simple as that. That's the formula. That's why it goes on to say, let us break their chains. They cry and free ourselves from slavery of God. And what do you say? You got to protect your people and your sovereignty, or you're going to be subservient or slaves to someone else. Check that back out.
Dangerous. It ignores human nature and it ignores human history. Either you protect your people and your sovereignty, or you will be subservient to something or someone.
And what are they going to be subservient to? Who's that someone? To the Lord's people. Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans. And what's that something? The kingdom of heaven. So even they know the gospel. That's why the scriptures say, even the devils believe and they tremble. So we speaking that we got next in the kingdom of heaven, and Esau is trying to fight against that. That's why he called all these war generals from all over the earth to discuss the new era of war. The enemy is no longer Russia, China, North Korea, the Middle Eastern so-called. No, it's bigger than that now. No, the new war is being declared against the lost 12 tribes of Israel, who's rising up and waking up at an all-time high. And according to prophecy, we got next after this fourth beast that they will be subservient to in the kingdom of heaven. Because it say the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom. They trying to fight against that. That's what this is about. And what do they have to do? When you read it in the KJV, let us break their bands asunder. Let us break that connection that the Lord has with His people. And how can you break that connection when you cause our people to go astray? Pretty much what you see known as black culture today. That's why they promote and push gangster rap, whoredom, black culture, and pop culture. That's why they push that on our people. That's them breaking our bands asunder. But yeah, they know they're going to be subservient to us in the kingdom of heaven. And that's why the scriptures say that the devil know that he have but a short time. Matter of fact, I'm going to get that real quick. This is the book of Revelation 12 and 12. Therefore rejoice, you heavens, and you that dwell in them. Woe unto the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea. For the devil, who is Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. He know if he don't stop it right here, right now, they're going to be subservient or enslaved in the kingdom of heaven. So it's all boiling down to this moment. In Chicago, what y'all just experienced is just a small taste of things to come. That's what this is about. What they in Chicago for, they fighting against the kingdom of heaven. That's what they up there for. So let's continue with what he's talking about.
It's a truth as old as time.
See that? It's a truth as old as time. He's talking about what? The words. He's talking about the scriptures. The truth that's been here from the beginning.
Human nature, and it ignores human history. Either you protect your people and your sovereignty, or you will be subservient to something or someone.
The kingdom of heaven.
It's a truth as old as time.
That's prophecy.
And since waging war is so costly in blood and treasure, we owe our republic a military that will win any war we choose, or any war that is thrust upon us. Should our enemies choose foolishly to challenge us, they will be crushed by the violence, precision, and ferocity of the War Department. In other words, to our enemies.
See, he said, our enemies are going to be crushed by the War Department. And that's why Revelation 13 say what? Who can make war with the beast? That's all Esau has done since he been in power, was crush the nations. That's why Daniel 7:19 say, with his teeth and with his feet, he did break in pieces, and stamp the residue.
To challenge us, they will be crushed by the violence, precision, and ferocity.
Going to be crushed by the violence. Crushed by the violence.
The War Department. In other words, to our enemies, F-A-F-O.
Hey, I bet Esau like that. He said to our enemies, which he declared the enemy, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, the people he been sending ICE after, trying to deport. Now going after the so-called blacks in the democratic cities. So you the enemies. And then that's why the scriptures say this. Let me see if I can find it. And that's why he said F-A-F-O, which that's the so-called black lingo in the black community. F-A-F-O, which means fuck around and find out. Meaning if you play, you're going to find out the hard way. That's what that means. And then I'm going to get this in the book of... And he's pretty much, he declared us the enemy, and then he using our slang and our lingo against us. And that's why the book of Psalms say this in the book of Psalms, chapter 10, verse 5. His ways are always grievous. The judgments are far above out of his sight for all his enemies. And what he say? A new era of war against all enemies, in particular the 12 tribes. It says he puffeth at them. Puffeth symbolically is like you sticking your chest out. Like you may see a snake, he may hiss. A wolf may show his fangs. A cat may hunch his back and extend his claws. A lion may roar. That's what Esau is doing right now. For all his enemies, he puffeth at them. That's why he said to our enemies, you're going to be crushed with the violence and fuck around and find out. F-A-F-O. And that's what's happening in Chicago right now. They finding out the hard way. So he's puffing at his enemies using our lingo against us. So if that don't prove that the enemy within is talking about the 12 tribes, Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, then who else is he talking about? Who else uses that lingo? And back to the book of Psalms 140, we're going to get 1 again, down through 2. Deliver me, O Lord, from the evil man. Preserve me from the violent man. And what did Pete say about the enemies?
Use foolishly to challenge us. They will be crushed by the violence, precision, and ferocity of the War Department.
See, they're going to be crushed by violence. That's why David said, preserve me from the violent man. This is the violent man who came into power and stayed in power through war, which imagine mischiefs in their heart. Continually are they gathered together for war. America been here about 250 years. Over 230 of them years, they've been at war. They have sharpened their tongue like a serpent. Meaning what? They speaking bolder and bolder every day. They're not speaking in code or generally speaking no more. No, they identifying the target through their speech. They saying little code words hinting at who the target is. They have sharpened their tongues like a serpent. Hey, that's part of war. That's wartime propaganda. At war, you got to identify the enemy. You got to justify on why you're coming at the enemy, and then you execute the plan. So they gather together for war. They gather right here. They have sharpened their tongue like a serpent. They speaking like a serpent with a sharp tongue right here. During the beginning stages of war, it happens through speech. Adder's poison is under their lips. Keep me, O Lord, from the hands of the wicked. That's Esau, Edom, the white man. Preserve me from the violent man. That's the white man in particular here in America who have proposed to overthrow my goings. And this don't just mean to get you in the system. This don't mean to keep you oppressed or in a low place. Overthrow our goings. No, that's the book of Psalms, chapter 2. Let us break their bands asunder. To overthrow our goings, that's to keep us separated from the Most High, to keep us away from this truth, to keep Israel away from waking up, so that they don't go into slavery in the kingdom of heaven. As long as they can keep us from the truth and keep Israel from waking up, they good. So I'm going to do a part 2. This will be the end of part 1. Lord willing, this was informative and edifying. Till next time, Lord willing, Shalom.